just tuned in to NNUTS podcast. Yeah, that's right, NNUTS. Nothing new under the sun. So make sure you tune in, because this is where it's at. You don't want to miss it. You hear me? Let's go. Into the UTS. Into the UTS. Into the UTS. Into the UTS. Nothing new under the sun. Yeah, we're the best. Into the UTS. Into the UTS. Into the UTS.
Part of that is, and one of the things that I expressed to you while you was here, is like you gave us responsibility in the family. You told us that what we did mattered, and anything that we could do to help ourselves would help the family, would help the unit, and that was one of the lessons that I remember, that I was like, man, that I have responsibility in the family. Now that brings me back to another time in the life that we live, where my mom, you would come in our bedrooms, and if we didn't have our drawers right, that means everything folded up in your drawer, and our beds made, you would come in and dump it all out, and tell us to do it all over. Like it was like military school. Where'd you get that from? Like how and what was the purpose? Because your kids took it one way, and some of your kids took it another way.
I know. Well, actually, I don't know all the way. All I can think is that my mother worked a second shift, single mom, and my brothers and sisters would have people over to the house. Yeah, she worked a second.
She was single? How was she single when she had... I'm sorry.
On Monroe Street. She was a single woman.
Oh, she had divorced Daddy Cleve when she was like...
Well, I was the breakup baby. So when she went down south to have me because she knew Daddy wasn't my daddy, she came back and it wasn't working. I heard Daddy Cleve run out the house with a gun and all this stuff.
Mama,
don't do that.
We throwing out real business on the...
Sorry, but...
And then on top of that, is Pam is after you, and she is also Daddy Cleve's baby. So how you figure you the breakup baby?
Is she?
What the world?
Is she?
Okay, I ain't even gonna get into this.
Okay.
My family is really dynamic, and they will take one thing and make it an issue. And when I say make it an issue, somebody want to fight you, somebody want to. We like that. Like we divided in the mud when we ain't got when there ain't no outside forces addressing us. But then let something happen to one, we kind of crazy, and we'll get there and make sure it'll never happen again. And I say this, and my mother being so real, so that like we ain't protecting no names. She just spoke names out here, and I know some people will take it as a diss. Like to me, my understanding, and I don't know, I could have swore Pam looked a lot more like the Clancy's than I don't know. I thought so, but. Well, okay. Whichever way she might
answer who Alice Renee is, so we'll leave it like that. So, but at any rate, it was Diane. She's the one. What is Diane? Three in the family.
Third,
yeah. So it was her, and then there was Daddy kids, the Clancy kids, and then it was me. So when Mama left, she only took Diane and I, and she left the other kids with Daddy. And then she found a place and asked them once, did they want to come? And of course, her oldest son, Larry, number one, he came. Sharon and Mark didn't come. That's how they were raised out in the heights with Daddy and Daddy Mama. So, but at any rate, when Mama worked the second shift, and she had a brand new house, and we were so proud of her. We had custom-made drapes, marble tables, all this kind of stuff, and in there it was nice. But they would invite people over, Sharon, and they would write on the wall in the bedroom. Mama said, "Okay, just let y'all just use that bedroom to write on, but just be destructive." And it was hurting my mom. Because she worked so hard to have. Here she is, a poor girl coming out of Missouri, raised by her daddy, and she done climbed that ladder with the help of Christ, and they were just like tearing stuff up. So that's what I believe happened. I wanted you all to have value in what you had. And then on top of that, all of us, we knew Mom was going to be home about 11:20. So if the house was dirty, that house got cleaned up. Everybody act like they was in the bed, like nothing had happened all day. Or else, if she come home and the kitchen was dirty, everybody pretty much finna get a whooping. That's what's gonna happen. So
do you think that was abusive?
No.
And I keep saying that because the world today, everything is verbal abuse, mental abuse, and then there's physical abuse. Now, I got whoopings. Yeah. My mama gave me whoopings. Yeah. I don't think I got whooped by anybody else, but I'm from an era where if you act up in the street, they could whoop your butt, and then when you got back home and the people in the street told your mom or told your family, you might have got your butt whooped again. So with that being said, what is the difference between disciplining and abuse?
Well, it's not like, your sister, LaShonda, with her very, very fair skin, she would have webs on her. We got weapons with extension cords, so I figured y'all could get weapons with extension cords. We had to go to the bush and get the switch. And if it wasn't the right one, she sent you out there to get a bigger one, and so you're going to get your ass whooped. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what happened. And I didn't get good, and I would tell on everybody, and Mama knew that. Because, yes. I mean, no, I don't like pain. I'm a good girl. Yeah.
So my mother is incriminating herself. I hope all the statutes and limitations is over. And, yeah. Cords, I got it with hangers. Oh, yeah. You don't remember the hanger?
No. Oh, yeah. For what? What'd you do?
I don't know. I think that might even be the one in Flint where you just grab. I've had knife thrown at me.
Well, I threw a gallon of milk at LaShonda.
I got my headphones on, and I'm going. We always take our shoes off at the door.
You got to take your shoes
off at the door. Mm-hmm. Now I am leaving the house because I used to like to leave because I know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was that time of the month when everybody was out. I knew how to get. I knew when it was time to get out of the house. So your boy was tying his shoes, and then I see stuff. I'm like, oh shoot, what in the world is going on? I look over. My mother is at the sink throwing stuff at me because she said I wasn't listening to her. I had on my headphones, and she was looking directly at me. And she never. I don't remember hearing her. But so you don't remember? You remember that, Mom?
No, I just have a hard time believing that because a knife that could kill. When you was the one that
didn't. She threw forks. She threw knives. I was like, what in the world? Like I've seen it, and I said, Mama, I got witnesses. My sister would tell you that because she was in the kitchen. This was on my road, and like I said, I was tying up my shoe, and I had my headphones on, and you was trying to get my attention, and you started throwing the silverware. So whatever silverware that was there was the silverware she would throw.
I could probably see that because I remember throwing a gallon of milk at LaShonda and hitting the kitchen wall. Yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna skip that and go right into the politics. Now my mother is very. Like we used to watch CNN when CNN first came out, and when we had cable. I ain't even gonna go into the times when we didn't have cable, but when we had cable, I would know what was going on. And when she talked about the cassettes in the morning, Mom would play the Bible cassettes as we got ready for school and walked out. So I remember the cassettes. But my mother has always been a news watcher, and it has always helped me in my life because I've known what was going on, and I've been able to match certain current events to back when there was nothing new under the sun. That's a plug. NNUTS. But so I say that to say, how do you feel about this shutdown? What do you feel like? The Democrats is taking the blame for it, but
they taking the blame for it.
That's what Trump is saying. It's their fault.
Oh, okay.
That's what Trump is saying. A lot of people are saying it's the Democrats that don't want to legislate. Now, I'm gonna ask you another question too. What are you? Are you a Republican or Democrat or what?
Well, I'm a card-carrying Democrat. However, I have voted Republican in the past.
Y'all heard it here. She's a card-carrying Democrat. I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I'm a Democratic-leaning independent. I have and will vote for Green Party, Republican, best person for the job. I do think that Democrats often take us for granted, and I also think that Democrats don't necessarily have a message. It's like Republicans have a message and a cohesive group, and the Democrats are like the flower childs that like, oh yeah, we want to do this and we want to do this, and don't ever really do anything. And that's my piece about Democrats. But 9 times out of 10, Republicans we ain't on the same grind. So let me go back to my original question. So do you think the Democrats need to take heed to this pressure and get this shutdown over with? Give them the $5 billion for the wall. Yeah, $5.8 billion a day.
No, because Mexico is going to pay for the wall. And then here's the biggest problem I have. Republicans held the White House, the presidency, the Senate, and the House. Now, why didn't Trump get $5 billion or $20 billion from his Republican people? Why did he wait now for the Democrats to come in and make it look like they're the problem? But he said himself.
The lame duck section was where they first started, and it was all ran by Republicans.
Yes.
They had the majority in all. So that's one of the reasons why I do not think the Democrats are responsible for this. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for the people that are out of work, but this is all Trump's fault. I hope he hanging on his neck, and I hope it drown him. No, don't let me say that. I mean politically drown him, because this you take full responsibility for it. He said it was his shutdown, and then you want to walk it back. Come on.
I got a phone call today. We were in the library. The phone call was from a young woman, very concerned because her WIC is totally cut off, and she owns her own home paid for. She says, I'm going to have to sell my home and go to the shelter. I'm like, no, you're not going to have to sell your home. You're going to keep your home because it's paid for. We don't lose nothing. You're not going to lose anything. So you go to the shelter, that used to be the place you can get Section 8. He's going to cut that. So people have to, I raised y'all to be independent. That was, hey, I got to go back to this. I wanted my children to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, that you don't have to depend on the government, depend on you. And my son has made me so proud. All my children have made me proud. Yes, I believe it.
So let's bring it back to the question. So give us your take on this government shutdown. What do you think is the issue, and what you think should be the ultimate compromise?
Well, it's so funny, but I think that Trump thought if he shut it down, the Justice Department wouldn't be funded, and he shut down Mueller's investigation. This is kind of what I think, because I don't understand what he's doing. He know the Democrats is not going to give him all that money. How? They're not. And I would be angry if they gave him all that money. I don't understand.
So what would you rather the $5 billion go for? Let's talk about that. Where would you like to see that $5 billion go?
Well, since I've been down here and talking to the people on the street, and also talking to you, and the wages, and just being a Michigan person, knowing that our wage is $10 $10 an hour, but down here we just looked it up. What is it?
I guess it's $8.25 an hour, but it's still seven something federally.
Now, how do you live? Especially in a city like this, very, very expensive. So, I think like President Obama thought, let's educate people for these jobs that are out here that they can't fill.
So, what's your plan? I mean, how would you frame it? So you want to just take $5 billion the $5 billion and put it in job training? What do you see that? I mean, like $5 billion. What would you rather see $5 billion go?
I wouldn't want to put it all in training, but look at our infrastructure and things of this nature. I would like to see us build our country up some more and put people to work with a wage that is a living wage, where you can, at least go out to the movies. That's expensive. You
Well,
do something.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. A living wage. What is a living wage, and what is poverty? And I think poverty is when you barely making it, and no matter, it's pretty much dependent on where you at. Because poverty in California is probably a lot different than poverty in Michigan or poverty in Virginia. But you're not going to be able. I'm sorry, I can't say what you're not going to be able to do. But training and moving people into different positions, or a lot of times we have it where we want to train people. We need nurses, and by the time you say that for 10 years, and then 5 years in, y'all don't need nurses no more, and then the nurses, you get a job and can't get a real job. I think we need to get innovative. I think that $5 billion could go into, if you really want to talk border security, I think you gotta really help Guatemala secure what's going on in their country. America created this drug trade. They created this market, and now we have these countries that are so reliant on drug money, and the drug money that goes through there, or just the revenue streams that go through there, that is more powerful than their government. And you got gangs and stuff, and you got a real reason why people are walking 12 miles to get to here, to get to the promised land. And for them to be turned around, put in cages and stuff like that, I really think you take some of that $5 billion and invest it in Central America. And when I say in Central America, I think if we broke it down per job, if you had like $10 million and you could create at least 1 million jobs for over a year with that $10 million. So then you wouldn't have this invasion of women and children coming into America and the need for a wall. My other issue is that Canada is a much bigger border, and if you really want to stop drugs and crime, like Canada is coming in from Canada with a bunch of different entry ports, but because you don't know it, because they don't have no Netflix specials about it. You know what I'm saying? That's why you're not really concerned about the Canadian border. Like, I think this also plays into the United States racist state of being, because if you brown, uneducated, you don't want it. How you know that all these people are uneducated? For one, you know that they got the will to want to change their life and to want to give a better life to their children. If they uproot, put everything in bags or whatever that they can carry, that they can walk 1,400 miles with, and you telling me that $5 billion to build a wall that they gonna tunnel under or just roll a boat around, like, I'm outdone. So $5 billion, which we in a deficit right now. Our deficit is growing faster than it's ever been growing, and I don't get where we're gonna get this extra $5 billion from. But we seem to get the money that we want to get for everything, and then people want to put more money in defense. But I think sometimes offense is better than defense, and that's not to say that the military doesn't need to pay people a living wage. But we're going to talk a living wage. A living wage is something where you can be comfortable in a home with lights and your bare and at least your bare necessities. That to me is poverty. When you every month you worried about what you're gonna eat, where you're gonna live. That's when you're living in poverty. So it's not necessarily $15,000 a year for one person, $30,000 for a year in California. It is how can a person look at if your wages if 70% of your wages go to where you live at. That right there is crazy. But I'm not. It's more than one way. It's more than one way for a person to earn money or have value. So they have this, maybe you say, hey, look, we can sustain property value. So,
Wow.
and at one point, but people we just increase. Years. So we're gonna end up over 1.8 billion, and what they
Wow, that's deep. And also living wage. And you can't afford people who again, probably going to be internet, and then that's your children's education.
this is your children, but they have internet for $19 for eligible SNAP eligible people.
I've talked to women with children, single women that's getting welfare, and they're not being able to get it.
What do you mean they're not being able to get it? So when
they're
you
getting turned down
Comcast, I know definitely Comcast has economic for if you have SNAP, you can get. Now, if you have a bill with Comcast, they're not going to let you get it because you got to pay it. But Comcast, Frontier also has that because they're looking at internet as more of a utility than actual. I mean, the information flows. But at the same time, I miss the creativity that people used to have. If you didn't have internet, how do you go get it? If you don't have food, can you go grow it? Like I mean, like what we got commodities that we ship up and pay for farmers not to farm or buying surplus, and then it used to turn into peanut butter and cheese, and now they start giving you money to go to the store. There's other ways to bridge that gap versus just hey, throw some more money at it, because at one point the more money you throw it at, the more money and I'm going to talk about the other side of that. Like we talk about EBT and what that means to people that can barely eat, but we don't talk about how Walmart bottom line is based on EBT. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about how Walmart can have you work for $8 or $10, and you can still qualify for food stamps because you don't make enough money, or don't have enough hours, or don't have the benefits to pay for it. So, like, you look at a total cost situation and you say, oh, dang, you kind of supplementing Walmart. And I hate to kind of pick on Walmart because Walmart is one of the companies that I think try their best to keep prices low and try to and try to make sure people have food, but at the same time, like, you really have to look at the total picture. And EBT is not only welfare to the people that's actually getting it, but it is also welfare to those companies, to those companies that depend on you spending those food stamps at that store.
Who they said terrible things about President Obama because he opened up the door for more people to get food stamps. But what happened? The food went up. Food is just so expensive. It's ridiculous. It's expensive for us. You know, it's just expensive. It's hard to eat.
Yeah, when food gets expensive, what you got to do? It's always supply and demand. Maybe you get different food that they're not producing. It's just more. And you asked me, you said, Brian, how you keep food in both of these houses or whatever? And I said, well, Mom, I really have to make sure I understand what I'm paying and what I'm buying. I buy a lot of stuff that's on sale, and I will buy in bulk depending on if it's worth it. But how do you think you can improve your economy is basically how I feel like you could. I've always had a restraining economy where, heck, I might have a job for 6 months and then be off another 4 months, and then I got expenses. So how do you scale to economy? I think a lot of people maximize input to output, or even go over or run surpluses. A lot of this is budgeting 101 and understanding, like my.
Hey, check out my bro on NNUTS. Nothing new under the sun.
NNUTS.